welcome back to this week's episode of the Broken Kid Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about something that left me feeling a little weird, I like watching movies, and as much as the next person, if that next person is a movie critic. That being said, I got a little emotional watching this movie because it was a horror movie, and it was for all, I think, the right reasons, I guess. But that movie is House of Wax, and if you guys haven't seen it, I don't care. Because it's been out for years, so this is no spoiler warning. This is your spoiler warning. Get out of here if you don't want to know. But most people don't consider horror something that is like an art. That being said, I'm going to talk about it like it is, because to me it is. But this is practically a movie where a bunch of teenagers that are going to go watch like a football game, they're on a trip to go get there, right? And then they camp, and it ends up that they get a little stranded, and they're stranded near a small town, and it turns out that the guy who lives there, there's two twins. One of them is like deformed, and they're both killers, but essentially they have a house of wax, where they literally wait for these victims to kind of fall into their trap, and they direct them there, and they turn them into wax human figures while they're still alive. They literally like inject them with wax and spray them with wax, and they become encapsulated in wax. So they're these like wax figures, and they die slowly, but they also kind of get preserved because of the wax, and it slows down the rate of decay. It's really disgusting. But I was watching it, and this stars Elijah Cooper and Jonathan Papadaki, if that's how you say his name. You can't say that 5 times without stuttering. And then it also has Chad Michael Murray. So it has a pretty great cast. And then it starts to kind of drop off where it has Paris Hilton. Now there's no nudity, but it doesn't matter because everybody knows about One Night in Paris. And if you're, that's all I'll say. But anyhow, so it's a great cast. And in my opinion, it's just a movie it's a great movie. I think it's going to become a cult classic. It's always been one of my top 5 movies. If I had to pick, in no specific order, it would be House of Wax. It would be Rob Zombie, House of a Thousand Corpse. It would be, let me see, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Jessica Biel. It would also be probably Halloween 1 and 2, the Rob Zombie version. And, well, I guess I can't pick. I guess I would pick the Rob Zombie 1 and 2 as one total film. It's a saga. And then the final film would be Scream 3. But, in no specific order, because that's just too much work to think and sit. To me, those are perfect films. They're well-rounded films. You could roll them down a hill, and those films would roll to the bottom perfectly. They wouldn't be clunky. But this movie, there's always people who in horror movies, it's a part of the formula where you watch them and you don't care if they die. You want them to die sometimes because they're ignorant. But this poor guy, can you still hear me? Testing. Yeah, the sound guy says it works. But anyhow, the poor guy, Jared Padalecki, however you say his name, this poor man, this poor young teen, he was about to be like entering his 20s in a few years, or like he was probably like 18 or 19, and he's got a beautiful girlfriend, Elisha Kuberth, whatever her name is. But she was in The Girl Next Door, that movie, not the horror movie, but the comedy rom-com with Emile Herschel. But this movie has, you're praying for him that he wins, because you kind of see him as the everyman boyfriend. He's actually a good boyfriend. He's trying to be there for his girlfriend, who's Elijah Cooper, like I said. But no, it does something that movies don't really do, where it takes out the character who is actually a decent person, and you're like, oh man. And every time you watch it, you just think to yourself, man, he didn't deserve it. But that's what makes the movie so well, because there's a mixture of characters that are good. None of them are really actually that bad. They kind of act like assholes to protect themselves, except for his character. His character was very protective of his girlfriend, and the way this guy goes out is actually really disturbing. I can't show it on YouTube. There's no way I could. That's like something you see like on Live Leak. You can't show that shit. But I gotta watch my mouth because I don't want to get demonetized or you know, a strike. But that being said, you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself the whole time, oh my god, because the way they show it in the film is he gets turned into a wax figure, and once you get turned into that wax figure, you slowly die, and he's slowly dying. There's no saving him at that point. He is gonna die. When you get turned into that wax figure in that movie, it's just a matter of dying, and it's rather painful. And the only thing that can move is your eyes. You can only move them left and right, up and down. And throughout the whole movie, you know, he's the first victim to go. The other thing is that none of the other people know that he's dead, so they still think that they're gonna save him. And they're talking. It turns out that the other characters actually liked him a lot because they kind of pick on him early on like assholes, and you're kind of thinking this is not okay. And you know, I'm rewatching it for like the X amount of time, but this is a great film. In probably like 8 years, it's going to be shown around cinemas as in like local cinemas. I don't know if you have those local cinemas that show just reruns, but this is going to be one of them. But maybe in like 30 years, I'm calling it. If it's not a cult classic in 8 years, it will be in 30. And if it doesn't, or I shouldn't say 8 years, but if it doesn't start to pick up traction in 8 years, I'm not gonna be surprised. A lot of people don't like that movie. They could make a sequel where they either show the beginning of the twins, or where they continue to show how these twins torment other people. That decision to kill this character was something that was not expected to me, because most people, like, he wasn't smoking, he wasn't drinking, he wasn't really cussing. And then they make fun of him in the movie because he has a muscle car, or like a really nice car, and the other guys drive a truck. And I don't know what world, but that car was like a Shelby Cobra or some sort of old Mustang. It was like an old, like a Camino. But man, that car was sexy, and they're making fun of him. And he's over here being modest. I mean, there's a reason he's got a beautiful girlfriend, and he's acting like that calm and polite. He could have had the whole world at it. He had the whole world at him, but he had to be turned into a stupid wax figure. So if you're gonna watch this movie, this is sadder than Marley and Me when the dogs died. This is so much sadder. Marley and Me left a scar on me in a way that it will never be cured. But this did something else, and you know,